The brain, a complex mystery organ that influences everything a person does, thinks, or feels. Life after a brain injury can feel just as mysterious and complex, trying to navigate services, experiencing potential isolation, different functioning, and much more. The rehabilitation process can impact the person as well as their supporters. It's often filled with ups, downs, and everything in between, all while the brain is relearning and making new connections within. Join us as the Brain Injury Association of North Carolina sits down with brain injury advocates to discuss a variety of topics surrounding life after brain injury. The more we understand the different aspects of services and effects of brain injury, the better we can help make connections within our community for individuals living with a brain injury. This is Making Connections. Today, we're going to talk about service animals. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to talk a little bit about service animals, what they are, what they do, and just kind of talk about the benefits, any misconceptions, just everything service animals. So glad you guys are here to join us today. We're with Pat, and I'm going to kind of give her the floor to start and ask you, tell me a little bit about yourself and what brought you to helping with service animals.
Okay. Well, I'm Pat Hairston. I'm a co-founder of Four Paws and a Wake Up, North Carolina. We actually started this organization in 2019, but my husband and I have many, many years experience in the service dog industry. Rick previously started the first service dog organization in North Carolina. And we found ourselves leaving that organization in 2019 knowing that our work was not completed. So we wanted to find a way to continue on. We had met a woman, she lives in New Mexico, who wanted to start her own organization, and we kind of teamed up with her while we're separate entities from the point of all the legal and financial. Our mission is the same, which is to train and provide service dogs for veterans and others. And so that's what we're here doing. We're continuing on a mission that was started 25 years ago, and I've been doing this for about 18 years.
Excellent. Definitely sounds like you have seen it all probably when it comes to service dogs and how they help. So what does a service animal do? What is a service animal? Are there different types? What does that look like?
Okay. Well, a service animal, by definition, mitigates a disability for a person who's living with a disability. That disability can be visual, such as somebody with a limb impairment or who uses a wheelchair, or these days we're seeing more and more invisible disabilities. And that could be brain injury, why we're here. It could be post-traumatic stress. It could be anxiety disorders. It could be physical, and it's just that the physical disability hasn't manifested itself to be seen outwardly. An example of that would be somebody whose spinal cord is disintegrating due to degenerative disc disease. So there are all types of service dogs. There are dogs that are trained to alert to seizures. There are dogs that are being trained now to alert to low blood sugar values. Dogs are trained for, of course, the guiding eye, seeing eye dogs. That is the oldest um, recognized service dog in the United States, and that's over 100 years old. Service dogs can be trained for balance and support. So somebody who's still walking but is a bit shaky on their feet, wobbly, this could be somebody with either a limb amputation or maybe even someone with Parkinson's disease. Um, and the service dogs come in all shapes and sizes. So you could have something as small as a teacup Yorkie to as large as Great Danes and Mastiffs. It just really depends on what that dog is going to need to be used for.
Yeah, it definitely, all of those things sound really amazing. I have some questions later. You already piqued my interest of like, how do they detect seizures and blood pressure? I guess I'll ask it now. Can you go into a little bit about like how that training takes place so that these very smart and powerful dogs can make that impact?
So for seizure or blood disorders like diabetes, there is scientifically thought to be a chemical balance disorder. And so, what the dog is actually picking up on is that chemical imbalance, be it the low blood sugar, so it alerts to wake the person up, or gets the medication for the person, or goes and gets the device so they could do a reading of their blood levels for sugar. Um, Seizures, to me, are a little bit more out there. I find that it's difficult to directly train for seizure alert. There are a lot of people that do it, but because unless the seizures happen regularly, you have nothing to base it off of to work with the dog to train for that. So rather than training for alert of the seizure, a dog can be trained to support the person during and after a seizure, such as if the person is lying down, pushing the person onto their side so that they don't choke on their own tongue and saliva, such as going to get a telephone or going to get another person in the house or going to get a cold cloth out of the refrigerator that's placed in a particular location for the dog to retrieve it. Those are just some of the ways a dog can help for seizure assist rather than alert. We have found that the closer the bond is between the dog and the person, the most likely you are going to get an alert. So we have a young woman right now who is dealing with POTS, and don't ask me the full name of it, but it's really a blood disorder in which at times she stands up and her blood pressure drops and the blood flow goes completely to her feet so she can pass out. Um, Her dog, which is less than a year old right now, is in training. It lives with her, and it is alerting to this happening. Unfortunately, we are trying to work on training the dog to alert in a different way because he's so young right now. He alerts by releasing his bladder, which is not what you want. So, you have to kind of then work with what you have, diagnose what's happening in the dog, what's happening in the person, and kind of put the two together to kind of redirect the alert on the part of the dog. We truly believe that the dog is alerting more than 20 minutes before the event. We just haven't figured out with the family what that alert is.
That's so interesting. And so it brings me on another thought of how long does it typically take to train a service animal? Do you typically have, how young do you start and how long does it often take?
Right now, we're sort of venturing into a different territory, which is owner assisted training. So these are for people that have their own dogs, but they need them to serve them as a service dog, and that is typically taking about 1 year to happen. We have started with an adult dog, and we have started with puppies, and both have been able to, within a 12-month period, be working specific skills that mitigate the disability, which would classify them as a service dog. So it's really about a year in a program where we the client is not identified. We could be looking at anywhere from a year to about 18 months.
Gotcha. And you mentioned how there are so many different types of dogs that could be used. Are there specific characteristics that you look for or that are more consistent throughout, no matter kind of the breed or anything like that, that makes a good service dog?
Yeah, it's really about temperament and personality. Well, some might not believe dogs have personalities, but it's a dog that has an even temperament, that likes new experiences, that is open to trying new challenges, that doesn't scare easily, that has really good basic obedience, or it has the potential to have that. Um, and then you kind of shape it from there. There's things that would prevent a dog from being a service dog if it has any aggression to people or other dogs, or other animals, such as it chases cats. If it is fearful of loud noises. That my theory on that is if it tucks tail and runs away from something, then it's probably not a candidate for a service dog. So a number of factors are looked at when selecting a dog or evaluating a dog that someone already owns.
Yeah, and you mentioned the bond being kind of the most important part. Can you talk about that process of either forming the bond or do any sort of matching with people? What does that look like?
Um, we do a matching process, and then once we have a dog trained, we work with the person for about 7 days. The bond can happen fairly quickly within the first to second day because of the way we do the training and the repetition and getting the dog and the person together all the time. But this is also a person who is very willing and is anticipating and excited about having this service dog by their side to help them live their life more independently. For the dog, a bond will transfer between a dog and a human up to 4 times. And so we want our trainers, and for right now, that's my husband and myself, loving on these dogs so that they can learn to live in a loving environment, um, be cared for, be rewarded for positive behavior, negative behavior ignored. So you're shaping the dog into what you want it to be. And the bond happens quickly. I mean, it's just amazing to me to bring a client in on a Sunday evening, and by Tuesday, the dog is listening to their new person and not following commands for the trainers.
Oh wow. And I mean that's definitely something you want to, you want that bond to be extremely strong. I mean these dogs are doing really important work. Um I know sometimes, there's this they're working when they're acting as a service dog
Mhm.
versus, just sort of and a pet. Can you talk about any sort of misconceptions or maybe myths that you've heard out there that you want to kind of put the record straight? I know there's sometimes people don't see that they're working dogs. They just, oh, I want to pet them or, things like that. What do you think about that?
I think that is the hardest thing for us as trainers and for clients to deal with. The people that want to whistle at, call your dog, want to pet your dog, even though you've asked them not to. Um, think of it as a person in a wheelchair. Would you want to go up and touch their wheelchair? It's really the same thing because a service dog is considered the same as a wheelchair, walker, cane, or crutch. So it is an adaptable piece of equipment. It's a tool to help the person live more independently. As a person out there in general public, when you see a service dog and you're doing all these, and I will call them very annoying habits of calling the dog, whistling, whatever, um, you are distracting that dog from doing its job. And potentially by that distraction, it could miss a signal that that person is relying on that dog to help them with. So it's very dangerous. To me, it's really in that case it's not a misconception. Well, the misconception is if the dog is standing by my side in a heel position, the misconception is that the dog is not working. The dog is working. The dog is always on once it's out in public. So people need to be aware of that and, give them their space and respect their space.
Absolutely. I think that's good for anybody. I know that I've talked with some people and they mentioned, people come up and ask the person, what's wrong with you when they see the service dog and things like that, as if it were, everyone's business just because they have a dog in the grocery store or whatever. I just imagine that would be so frustrating. Do you ever hear instances of that, or while you're training, just kind of the lack of awareness of people's kindness? I don't even know how to describe it.
All the time. My husband uses the service dog. He lives with an invisible disability. His back, his spinal column is disintegrating. He has no feeling in his hands. So when they see him, they see a 6-foot person that looks like he's a viable, active, healthy human being. They don't understand the pain and the inabilities he lives with every day. So when his service dog is by his side and they're interrupting it by calling it, petting it, or saying to him, "Gosh, you don't look disabled. Why do you have a service dog?" They really are totally invading his privacy and his ability to live his life out there in public and accomplish what he needs to. Very rude to be asked that.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is, just go about your day. If it's not bothering you or anything, it's their business, not yours.
It seems today people just have to be right up there in your face and want to know everything. And that's just not the case. Most people with disabilities, try to live their lives very privately. They don't want to share what's happening in their lives. We live it a little bit more publicly because we run an organization that provides service dogs. So we often use that opportunity to educate others. But there are days that, he just wants to go in and get that half gallon of milk and that loaf of bread and walk out of that store and not have spent 15 to 20 minutes extra in the store because somebody has a question for him.
Yeah, just living his life. And so we talk about kind of going out in public in the grocery store, and it makes me think about, COVID. And I was wondering if that has impacted this, either the service dog industry or what you've seen, either more people being at home, more, influx of invisible disabilities. What have you seen since the kind of pandemic? Have you noticed anything different?
Well, the hardest thing is not being able to really go out. Um, the only way a service dog gets trained to work in public is to train it in public. And with all the stores being closed down for so long, or there are not many people allowed in the stores, we miss almost a full year of opportunities of training. You can only do so much in a home or in a park that you can't accomplish out in public. So it's been very, very hard to, work a dog. The dog is picking up a dropped item in the home perfectly, but the person goes out to a store and drops something and the dog has not made that association, then it's the same thing as picking that item up in the home. So that has taken us a lot more time to kind of train that, where if the pandemic hadn't kept us out of the public eye, we would have been able to work tasks like that right out there in public. So the dog would have learned it from the get-go out in a very busy and distracted environment.
Yeah, that makes sense. And hopefully, more public, more stores, opening. We'll see what the future holds, but hopefully, we'll be able to get more dogs trained quicker. And so I want to ask specifically, have you worked with individuals with brain injury before? And do you have any specific examples of, how much benefit can a service animal give to individuals?
We have worked with brain injury individuals. Many of these have been our veterans who have suffered multiple concussive events because of the work they were doing as a service member. And I think the service animal gave them the confidence to go out in public again and function. They may not function in the same capacity they did prior to their injuries, but they're able to navigate the world better and with more confidence with that dog by the side, because the dog can help to get them in and out of situations. The dog can give them space between themselves and an individual, either coming towards them or approaching them from behind. And in the event, the person is starting to have a bit of a meltdown because they're overwhelmed, there are tasks that the dog is taught to do to help them deal with that situation. So I think it's helped some of our brain injury veterans to get out there and re-engage in society and life.
Absolutely. And so, how does someone qualify for a service animal? Are there specific, what's that process look like? I mean, we mentioned, veterans getting service animals, but is the process kind of similar for civilians? What does that, can anyone have a service animal?
Anyone who has a disability that's recognized by the Americans with Disabilities Act are eligible for a service dog. Now, that being said, whether there are a sufficient number of service dogs that could actually be provided is another thing. I was just approached today by email, someone wanting a service dog that would be able to detect when their migraines are coming on. Well, that's not a field we work in. So it really depends on the disability and if that's an area in which service dog organizations are providing those dogs for. Any of the disabilities that are probably on either a scale of being less frequently occurring in the population or more uncommon are probably disabilities that are not going to be or have service dogs available for, because people aren't training for them. I mean, if you think about it, years ago, let's go back 10, maybe 12 years, 15, people were not training service dogs for veterans with post-traumatic stress. It just wasn't heard of. And now that's kind of like a big popular thing. But with that, one of the hardest things to do is to translate a veteran with post-traumatic stress and having a strong diagnostic package to kind of submit to an organization on testing that's been done and equate that in the civilian population or non-veteran population. The documentation for that type of disability is lacking in the non-veteran community. They don't do standard testing. There is not a defined battery of tests that can tell you that this diagnosis was made based on X, Y, and Z. The military has done a great job of that, both the DoD and the VA, on providing that documentation that substantiates that type of injury and disability.
We'll be right back.
I'm Thomas Henson with Henson First Attorneys. My professional passion for over 30 years has been representing brain injury survivors and their families. I'm a certified brain injury specialist by the Brain Injury Association of America. This, combined with my legal training and experience, allows me to ensure that whoever is responsible for my client's brain injury whether due to a car crash, workplace injury, or other cause, is held fully accountable for my client's financial and personal losses. Visit us at lawmed.com for more information or to set up a free consultation.
Yeah, and that makes me think of, that type of testing and things like that are often extremely expensive, and there's a significant cost to that. And I think that is obviously a barrier to then, accessing a service dog. Is there a cost associated with a service dog? What does that kind of look like, if you're comfortable kind of talking about just generally?
So there's
that
two
means?
programs that we run. We run a service dog program in which someone would apply for a dog. We train it, we provide that to them, and we provide that to them at no cost. Right now, that process of accepting applications is all on hold. We have not been able to really train dogs through this COVID pandemic. As a matter of fact, we brought our first service dog in training into the program in over a year and a half yesterday. So she'll have at least 10 to 12 months before we would consider her for placement as she learns all the skills she needs to learn. Our second program, which is starting to grow in popularity, and it's only offered in the greater Wilmington, North Carolina area, is an owner-assisted training. So a person has their own dog, they apply to us for owner-assisted training, and based on their application, their disability, we then have a meeting with them, meet their dog, make a determination whether we feel the dog has potential to move forward with service dog training. And if so, then they're enrolled in our owner-assisted training, and that is a fee-based service ranging anywhere from $3,000 to $5,000 that the person must pay for that training for their own personal dog.
Gotcha. And is this anything like this covered by insurance that you know of, or is there any type of financial assistance? I would imagine no, but I figured I'd ask.
Yeah, it's not covered by insurance. For financial assistance, there are individual grants that people can apply for. But the best way is really for them to do personal fundraising to try to obtain those kind of funds to be able to do it. Well, we realize that that's a hefty price tag for somebody living with a disability. It's also a way in which they would have a qualified service dog that's certified within a year's time, rather than waiting 5, 6, 7, 10 years on a wait list for a service dog. And it's only a fraction of the cost of what some organizations are training, are charging for an owner-assisted training. We've seen costs upwards of $10,000 to $25,000 for other organizations doing owner-assisted training. And while our fee-based service is not fully funding the hours that we actually spend working with the individual or the hours behind the scene, prepping everything for them, it is our way to sort of try to make it as cost effective as possible while they're still getting a quality service dog. We run them through all the same tasks and skills and tests that we do if we were training the dog ourselves.
Yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you guys are doing a really great service, and though it's pricey at the front, it sounds like you're getting so much value. It's like a long-term investment. So but it would be extremely worth it. And so as we're getting towards the end of my questions, one of the questions I have for you, you've been in the field for a really long time. What keeps you going? What wakes, you wake up, you're getting with dogs, everything. Tell me a little bit about what keeps you in the field and your passion.
I think it's the people that say to us, "You've changed my life. You made my life better." Or the wife that says to us, you gave me my husband back, or you gave me the ability to go out and do my own grocery shopping. Um, that gives me chills to know that we had the ability to make an impact on their lives for the better in a world that there's so much that's not right, not good, mean. Um, it's that moment of time where you hear, thank you. I could not be where I am without your help. And that keeps you going. Even in times when funding is low, like it has been in the last year and a half, there's virtually been no funding other than for COVID and COVID related issues. So the last year and a half has been a true challenge. And you wake up and you sometimes go, what am I doing here? Why am I still doing this? And then you get that unexpected note from someone, and it just keeps you going. It's a calling. It's a gift from the heart.
Absolutely. I know I've heard so many, people that were on just the brink of their lowest point, and that service animal is just, it's the biggest light of hope. I think that's what I think a lot of service animals provide, is that component of hope that life can be better. It doesn't have to stay in this uncomfortable, feeling that often comes with disability, different symptoms related to disability. And so I'll kind of leave the last words up to you, whatever you want to leave the public with. I greatly appreciate your time, your energy, and most of all, your passion to serve individuals living with disability. So thank you so much.
Thank you. I guess I leave the public with, look us up, Four Paws and a Wake Up, North Carolina. Our website is k94paws.org, well, or k94pawsnc.org. Find out how you can help. Our greatest need at this point in time is financial. I hate to put that out there. I hate asking like many of us do, but COVID has really been hard on small nonprofits. And we've made a lot of personal choices to keep this going. And the reason we keep it going is for that person who wants to live a better life. And that's the person we want to help. Thank you, Lauren, for asking Four Paws and a Wake Up to come on today and talk with you. We appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I look forward to collaborating with you soon, maybe in person, and just getting I know, right? Just getting more of the word out, more education and awareness about service dogs, how they can help. And so I hope everyone out there was able to learn a little something today, and be sure to check out Four Paws and Wake Up. And we will see you next time. Thanks so much. Thanks, Pat.
You're welcome. Thank you.